Scientists have tested the Robidoux spring that flows to the distillery. It's one of the purest waters you'll find, but I still think there's something in it. It affects the spirit. You see, sooner or later, everyone who works at Glenfiddich becomes a pioneer. Brian Kinsman, the malt master himself, struck on a new idea after just 6 months in the job. Why not finish the 14-year-old in untouched Spanish and American oak casks to give it a new and complex harmony of rich and spicy flavours? And so, the first ever rich oak whisky was created. And it started life right here, in this warehouse. True art is all about exploring the beauty of the new. This is why it lives so well within the pioneering walls of the Glenfiddich distillery. Here lies one of the pieces from the Artist in Residence project, aptly entitled, "A Drink to Us When We're Both Dead." Buried beneath a blanket of heavy stones from the nearby River Fiddich is a cask that must lie undisturbed for another 98 years. Now, it is possible to buy a bottle of whisky from inside the cask, but you won't be able to enjoy it in your lifetime. However, your grandchildren will be sure to toast your wise investment. You could say that having fire in your belly can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse. Take, for example, Charles Gordon, son-in-law of the man who started it all, the great William Grant. Now, back in 1909, Charles had the unenviable task of selling the family's whisky in the highly competitive Glasgow whisky market. But this challenge alone was not enough for Charles, so he said farewell to Dufftown and embarked on a daunting year-long expedition, taking his liquid gold cargo to 25 ports, from Lahore to Kuala Lumpur and then Singapore to Sydney. Daunting as Charles's expedition was, it was pivotal to the good fortune of the Grant family business, and no doubt one of the reasons why Warehouse 8 stands here today. Being a pioneer may be rewarding, but it's no walk in the park, as William Grant's workers would have discovered much to their dismay. The hostile Highlands climate, which sometimes dropped to minus 15 degrees, was enough to take the whistle out of even the happiest of workers. Now, William Grant was a fair and kind man, and he appreciated all that the men did to help keep his dream alive. So he told his brewer, Reginald Niven, to give the workers 3 drams of new make spirit a day, straight from the stills. The daily drams, they worked to keep morale high, and meant that come hail or snow, William's workers always made it in, on time. It's all well and good to be forward-thinking, but it's also important not to forget where you've come from. Take the Solera vat that lies within this warehouse. The vat is always left half full, or half empty for the pessimistic. New 15-year-old whiskies are married together in this vat to help develop rich and multi-layered flavours from great whiskies that have gone before. So every time you sip a 15-year-old Solera, you are tasting literally generations of whiskies. If whisky were a piece of music, what would it sound like? A light classical symphony? A smooth, soulful groove? Or a hard-hitting burst of rock? Richard Hawley is the first musician to allow whisky to express itself in sound. He's penned a series of tracks, translating the evocative flavours that he found in Glenfiddich's whiskies. So now, you can finally discover if it sounds as good as it tastes. Sometimes, being the odd one out is not a bad thing. This is something that graphic designer Hans Schläger must surely have understood when he was approached to design a new and distinctive bottle for Glenfiddich in 1957. Hans took one look at all the other malt whisky bottles on the shelf and realised that they all looked exactly the same. They were all round. So his clever yet simple response was to design the now iconic triangular bottle, which had the desired standout effect and even stacked better. The design also paid homage to three vital ingredients of whisky: the purest Scottish water, air, and barley. Hans really did prove that sometimes the best ideas, just like a good dram of Glenfiddich, are right under your nose. There's a real skill in seeing opportunity where others would not. But this is exactly what maltmaster Brian Kinsman did in the winter of 2010, when 4 warehouses suffered severe roof damage due to heavy snow. Instead of commiserating over the event, Brian decided to celebrate it by releasing a special bottle of Glenfiddich Whisky. It's the perfect toast to conquering adversity. One might think that the most awarded single malt distillery in the world wouldn't have room in the mantle for another treasured trophy, especially one that weighs over 28 stone. But Glenfiddich have held on to a very precious cask that has slumbered since the early 1930s. The whisky inside is one of the oldest and rarest in the world. This is why only a couple of trusted people at Glenfiddich know its exact whereabouts. But a good guess is that it's hidden somewhere deep within the barreled rose. It's worth keeping an eye out for in your travels.